same entity.
It's the same,
Yeah.
same.
Yeah.
So they don't-
Natalie, do you have your chargers?
I do.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. No, I heard her. It
Yeah,
just,
last time I didn't have them. I didn't know what I was doing. 'Cause I only use it for this.
Yeah, me too. I keep it in the same spot.
me too.
I'm a creature of habit and I have my system. Yeah, me too. If I don't have my life, I forget everything. Just like you have your system, I said, well, it keeps everything in order. If I have a system and I do everything the same way all the time, I know quickly how to get things back in order if things get out of control. Plus, I also know when things are out of whack because and then I said three, as I get older and I get dementia or whatever, and I start forgetting things, well, since I've had a system for 30, 40 years. Hopefully it'll stay in place no matter what. Yeah, I keep doing these things. I go home,
I'm not
so
a details guy, so
I have ADHD, so I'm all over the place all the time.
I gotta keep it,
Nope.
I gotta keep it rolling.
as they say, keep it simple. So I gotta keep it simple. I keep it simple and I keep everything in place.
Well, my mother transitioned when she was 99, and when she began to develop dementia, she went back till she was 30. So you might, they go way back.
That's pretty good, going back to 30, that's
They
kinda
were,
slick.
I mean, the things she remembered, not the things she could do, the things she talked about.
That one, he went back to,
He
he
went
was
way
a
back.
kid.
Yeah, they go
He
way
was 9,
back.
so he was going in the refrigerator and take every container out, and you get a spoon. And there's the old ice cream. It was nice.
I mean, really, they go way back.
He was 99.
Was he? 99.
Going down the city, she's still kicking.
Yeah,
Yeah, man, she's still sharp.
Yeah. Yeah, my mama didn't start having, signs of dementia until she was about 92. She stayed sharp for a long time. She drove till she was, 84. And I said, well, you gotta stop driving.
Mama drove, she was.
Make a motion, we negotiate.
She gave me the key.
Oh,
She
yeah,
said,
yeah.
she said, I don't think I knew.
I was expecting nobody.
And she gave me the key.
Smart. I say, and
Wait till next month.
Trust my judgment.
But when Pap started having dementia,
We can take our
we
time.
went to,
Because B is contingent by the
Let's get
anyway.
started at 6.
so we started thinking about
yeah,
for about 3 years.
that vitamin C, man, it is crucial. It's
I got 6 o'clock. Yep.
Good evening, and welcome to the City of Douglasville Planning Commission meeting. I am Francisco Artley, the chairman of the Planning Commission. The other members of the Planning Commission are Keith Burnett, the vice chair, Natalie Fegan, Nathan Zachary, Joy Bates, Ralph Benton, and Mark Van. The staff members are Shayla Reed, Community Development Director, Miranda Jordan, Staff Attorney, Marissa Jackson, Planning and Zoning Administrator, Dana Gray, Senior Planner, and Chelsea Tubbs, Planner 1. There are a few protocol items I need to make you aware of before we start the meeting. Please listen closely on how tonight's meeting will be conducted. Keep your comments and presentation on a professional level, dealing with the facts that are important for this commission to make its decision. We will not accept comments that are considered by the chair to be a personal attack on any individual or group of individuals. You will receive a warning from the chair if you deviate from this requirement. A second deviation will result in a request for you to leave the meeting and the premises for the evening. Refrain from any applause or comments from the audience. Only one person will be talking at a time, and all comments will be made at the podium after the speaker has been recognized by the chair. Please direct all comments to the chair and the commission, not to the audience or the staff. Please do not applaud or react to speakers, speak from the audience, cheer, carry on a conversation with others in the audience, or disrupt the order of this meeting in any way. Be aware that these hearings are not a debate or an opportunity to ask questions which must be answered by any individual tonight, but are merely an opportunity to present information to the commission. Other than the applicant, no person may speak more than once. The applicant may reserve part of their speaking time as a rebuttal and may speak next and last and may use the entire 20 minutes allotted for the pro side of the application. Other than the applicant, no person may speak more than 5 minutes. If you have a cell phone or any other electronic device, I ask that you either power them off or put them on silent mode. If anyone wishes to speak tonight, please fill out a form available on the table up front and hand it to the staff before approaching the podium. After the case is called, we will hear next from the staff attorney regarding any relevant information to this case. The commission members will be free to speak and ask questions at any time before the vote on a project. Following the applicant, anyone who wishes to speak for or against the project or just ask questions will have an opportunity to do so. The Sydney ordinance restricts each side to a maximum of 20 minutes, or time may be waived at the discretion of the presiding official. If questions are raised, we may ask the applicant to speak again. Afterward, we will call for a motion and a second, have any necessary discussion, and if the matter is not tabled, we will vote to recommend approval or denial of the application. This commission is only a recommending body. The items will be heard by the mayor and council whether we recommend approval or recommend denial. Unless tabled, these items will be heard by the city's mayor and council at their legislative meeting on Thursday, October 12th, and then voted upon by them at their meeting on the following Monday, October 16th. The first item on our agenda is to approve the minutes from September 6th. Is there any need for discussion? Do I have a recommendation?
I move that we approve the minutes.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, the minutes have been passed. Motion was approved. All right, our new business. The first item on our agenda will be C? C. Hold a public hearing and consider a proposed ordinance to amend subsections 2.02, 2.05, 2.06, 8.04, and 13.02 of the Unified Development Ordinance to allow the use of shipping containers for commercial activities in certain zoning districts. Staff will now present the item.
Greeting, Planning Commissioners. I'm Shayla Reed, Community Development Director. Just a reminder for text amendments. It is a city-initiated item, so you have the authority and ability to provide recommendations as well. They will be noted over to council that this particular recommendation came from the Planning Commission. So it doesn't mean that what you're seeing is what it has to be. You can always add to it. So I wanted to make sure we put that note out there for the sake of the text amendments. So we have found an interest in having shipping containers serve as a commercial use. That particular use was derived from a visit that the city had to a location that had a village for shipping container usage, and it was something that staff was given the directive to inquire about the regulations that could be. So with that, we looked into certain sections of the code that gives us an opportunity to have this particular use. So I'll go through that and narrow it down, and then open it up for any questions you may have, Chairman. Section 202 of your current UDO, we would like to have the permitted uses or the permitted use for this particular use be allowed in your TCMU, which is Town Center Mixed Use and Central Business District only for the actual permitted use. That means that it is rightfully allowed without there having to be special request. And then your special land use would be general commercial and LI, light industrial. So that means if they're looking to go into general commercial or light industrial, they must have a special land use permit that goes before this particular board and council, and I can explain that in more detail. So this particular use was particularly asking for the downtown area. So we particularly allowed it to be permitted for the downtown area zonings, which would be CBD and TCMU. For that being said, we are willing or thinking that it works well in general commercial and LI. If there was to be a village of these uses, it would be more preferable in your LI. If it's just to be one particular use, I don't know if you've seen Chick-fil-A, but Chick-fil-A is now starting to do these particular uses. They have one that is coming up very soon in a city nearby. So that is one of the things that we're looking at for GC, if it's just gonna be a single use. So just using them as an example of what those uses would look like in GC. So section 205, so within that, if a site is over the size of 1 acre, it would need to have a development plan. That is something that staff reviews and presents over to council so they can understand and see what is being designed and proposed for the site. And again, that's for something that's over an acre. We believe that that would only be for either GC or LI, because down in this particular area, TCMU and CBD, we don't have large lands of acre or more sometimes, so it just depends. So with that, you'll see within the restrictions that I provided to you where those languages will go for the development plan. Next, the uses that staff has proposed for council to include inside of this particular proposal would be restaurants, gift shops, specialty apparel stores, bakeries, florists, art gallery, or a co-working space. I believe that was also mentioned, council would like to see us have a general retail added to that. So I apologize that that's not on here, but council did wanted to add general retail to that list. In addition to that, and that will be changed by the time it goes back to council. So with that, we're also seeing where there has to be a unified code with the Uniform Code Act, so that we'll have particular different agencies reviewing that to confirm compliance, which is like your building codes, your fire codes, et cetera. In addition to that, you'll have your building standards. DCA requires there to be certain building standards for these particular units, and so we have added that language inside of the proposed language as well. And then for your minimum parking, you have parking, of course, requirements for this. And so we identified where the standard square footage of a storage container would be. We gave an example of what a bakery would be. For example, a bakery would require 1 space for every 300 square feet. And that would only require 1 parking space for that particular use. The structure is very small, so parking would be very minimal. We believe that this particular use will have a lot of foot traffic, probably wouldn't have as much car space. I will use the amphitheater as a great example. Individuals who are already on foot traveling over to the amphitheater for a night event, they would not need parking. So we wouldn't see the downtown area necessarily having to have parking. However, going to the GC or LI proposals, they would probably have a larger square footage or more particular units out there. So they would require for there to be more parking spaces in those uses. Next, section 202, facade standards. We currently have facade standards, and it restricts the particular steel and metal materials. And so with that, that particular section will say with the omission of allowing for these particular uses for those particular, or those particular materials for that use, which means you won't find a steel or metal structure in your residential zonings, but you will find it where there's allowance of this particular use for storage containers. Okay, so that'll edit that particular section. Next will be 804, which will allow for there to be plumbing and restroom area, which is something else that DCA also requires us to put a certain emblem on these structures, confirming they have met the bathroom and plumbing standards for these facilities. And then lastly, 1302, giving it a definition, because there needs to be a definition, because we do not currently have a definition for this particular use. And so, Chairman, that concludes my report.
Okay, I think when I read this, I was kind of trying to figure out where you would put them and what they would look like,
Okay.
and kind of how, I guess, the beautification of shipping containers just dropped all over the place.
Okay. So let's start with where we would put them. Let's just say there's a good example. There's a business that is in the downtown area who has inquired for it. They have a large open space in the rear of their building. Their building faces Veteran Memorial, and their parking lot area is pretty large, and they don't use the full parking lot. So they're looking to see if they can add the units onto the parking area space to take up some of the space, which is almost directly across the street from the amphitheater. And as far as the look, I can show you pictures, but I believe you're sharing that. A great example I would like to show you would be Chick-fil-A. I'm really impressed with the design that they have with their structure when it comes to that. Even Starbucks, they're now doing it. And so those particular uses have engaged upon that design.
Does anybody else have a question?
I think it's super cool.
I have two questions, Jim.
Yes, sir.
I should know it, but where else is town center mixed use other than downtown?
Only downtown.
Okay. And then CBD?
Only downtown.
Okay.
So
Others-
downtown,
The others that you mentioned will require a special land.
yes, sir, and it's in other sections of the city.
And then, as far as shipping containers go, only because I'm in this industry, there's 20 foot and 40 foot.
Okay.
Are we requiring one versus the other?
So we haven't gone to that length, but that is a recommendation if you would like to see that to be added, to have it restricted to one size versus the other. I think that's the awesome part about having experts that serve in that field. So if you would like to see that language be restricted to that, definitely staff can provide that over to council.
I mean, I think we'd be open to either side, but just to allow for compatibility.
Well, we didn't restrict, but if you, I guess my thought would be if you find that one size is a little bit overwhelming, then you could possibly, of course, put that recommendation out to council to restrict it.
It's pretty big.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was gonna say the 53 footers are
I mean,
huge.
If you leave it open-ended, then they could use either.
Right, and that's where they were thinking they were opening. But again, you have the ability to provide a recommendation if you would like.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
So within that space, there'll be guidelines as to how far apart, how much green space, if we want to call it green space, frontage from the street, that sort of thing. All of those will be specified and clarified within the.
So your development
That's
plan.
in 8.4.
Your development plan language is listed inside of the staff report. Give me a second. At least I thought it was. Hold on.
So this, I've seen that, that's gonna go into the UDP as a whole? Okay, all right.
And just one clarifying question. I know that usually we are not doing aluminum or tin structured buildings, but did I hear you say that this would be an allowance? They wouldn't have to do anything to the outside of the container?
So the container, we're allowing materials such as steel and metal to be the allowed uses, the allowed materials for these structures. Currently, your code restricts steel and it doesn't allow metal. And so we're removing that restriction for steel, adding metal for the allowance of this particular use, but it will only be allowed for this use. So if they don't have the storage container use, they would not be permitted to have a structure that does that. One thing that I think could be helpful, the question you've asked has made me think that we could possibly allow there to be a different parameter of permitting requirement for this particular use to ensure that it's capturing that particular zoning or allowance. Because the only way we would catch it would be the special land use permit, but they're not only having it in special land use permit, they're allowed in permitted uses as well. So we can add a different parameter to cover that. So Tim, if you can make note that we can make note of there being additional requirements for that. We can definitely do that. Thank you for that.
Also, we had talked about earlier about the development plan, but that's only if it's an acre or more.
That's correct. And that is found on your page 5 of this
Yeah.
item.
Which, I mean, that makes sense, because you're not going to need a development plan if you already have a business and you just add one of these in a concrete area of your parking
Exactly.
lot or something like that, as long as
Yeah.
it works and, you know,
Yeah,
I think that makes sense.
okay.
Are they going to be able to be stacked?
So we don't restrict that, so yes, they can be stacked, as long as they're meeting the height requirement.
And I heard something about the facade, and I can't find that. Can you,
So that's going to be found on page, give me a second, page 7.
okay.
Mark, did you say these were limited to 1 acre?
No, it only has to have a development plan if it's an acre or more, which is going to be very little, because you're not going to have much of that downtown. But I mean, it makes sense, you'd want a development plan if you got some kind of interesting structure like this on a big old lot. You know, that
And-
would not be good.
And the development plan was thought more so when there is going to be an actual container, like, village.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Which
those
could
are
be
gonna
cool.
come,
Yeah.
yeah, those are gonna come pretty large, largely designed, and it's giving staff the opportunity to look at, you know, a separation, look at landscaping, give us opportunities to ensure that they're not impeding upon each other, things of that nature. Thinking of walkability, things of that.
Makes sense. It's pretty sharp.
Okay. Are there
And I
any
think
other-
council had concerns and questions about the uses, so I would definitely ask for you all to confirm that the uses are definitely in the idea you would see this fall within.
It's on page 3.
Are there any other questions from the board? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I do have one question. So, do you know when folks use these shipping containers, do they, like, build new ones? Could we require recycled shipping containers?
I'm not certain of that. I'm not. I can definitely find that out, but that would be something I'll find out between now and the council meeting.
Okay.
But I can find that out.
Last question, this restaurant is some broad brush, does that include coffee shop, you know, anything like that?
Anything that allows for there to be food with pickup. So whether that be, of course, you can't dine in. I wouldn't see that, I don't think. I guess. I don't think.
Two-seater.
Depends on how many containers they
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I think it would be one of those kind of pick up and dine outside kind of thingies. Yeah, so it does allow for that.
A little container village could be cool.
Yeah.
One last question for real this time. Are they allowing painting of the structures? And is there any limit to or any parameters around paint colors or anything like that?
So we're treating them as any standard structure would be. The only restrictions that we give, I don't even know if our historic preservations give color restrictions. I don't think it does. So we don't give restrictions in our code for that. We do have restrictions to only allow for murals, I believe, in historic preservation area, I think, or the downtown, something like that. But that's the only thing that we give a restriction on is the art component of it.
Okay.
But we will treat it like any standard structure.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone who would like to speak in favor of the project, ask questions, or make other comments? Please come forward and tell us your name and address. Is there anyone who would like to speak other than in favor of this project? Please come forward and tell us your name and address. Is there any need for further discussion? Do I have a motion regarding this application?
I'll make a motion to approve item number 23-345.
All right,
Second.
there's a second. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion passes and the application has been recommended for approval and will be heard at the council's meetings on October 12th and October 16th. All right. Are the applicants here for A and B?
No, there's not. Staff would recommend for it to be tabled.
All right. Do I have a recommendation that we table item A and item B?
I recommend that we table item A and item B.
All right. Any need for discussion? All right. Was there a second?
I'll second it.
All right. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Point of order, do we need to table them to a date?
Okay.
In my staff report, I was going to note that our ordinance says we aren't supposed to have meetings in November because of Election Day. So our next meeting, the next Tuesday, would be the first Tuesday in December, which would be December 5th.
Okay. I thought we were meeting on the Wednesday. I thought it said in the plan, in the schedule, it said Wednesday, the 8th.
Yeah, we did originally have that on the calendar to do
Okay.
it on the Wednesday instead of the Tuesday. But we also double-checked the ordinance, and it said that we weren't to have a meeting in November,
Okay. So December what?
Fifth.
December 5th.
December 5th.
We have Christmas in December, we probably should.
Well, I mean, it's the will of the commission. I think that we had a meeting in November last year, so it's at the will of the commission.
I will modify my motion to table A and B until our December 5th meeting.
Second.
All right. All in favor of tabling items A and B until our December 5th meeting signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, the motion passes, and the item has been tabled, and we will be heard at our December 5th meeting. All right. Where's my schedule thing here? The next item on our agenda is staff reports. Do you have anything?
You have to vote twice, two separate items. So A needs a motion, A needs a motion to table it till December.
Got it.
B needs a motion. to
Okay,
table it.
so then do I have a motion?
All
for-
right, I will amend that. And I move that item A, item 23-306 be tabled until December 5th.
Can we say?
Hold, please.
Chairman, they've identified that they are the property owners, but their representatives aren't here to speak on their behalf. They have asked that we still have the items heard and then allow for them to speak on their own behalf.
Can they speak to the items?
So they are the applicant, they're the property owners technically. I mean, someone's speaking on their behalf.
That's cool.
So-
Let them speak.
But
Okay,
I will say to Miranda, I guess the item that has been tabled, how would you like to move forward with that one to reverse it?
They can make a motion to reverse the previous motion.
Got it. Thank you.
okay. Do I have a motion to reverse the previous tabling of these two items?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to reverse the table of item A since we have new information that the representatives for the property are present.
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? All right, motion passes, and the items to be tabled have been reversed. And so we will proceed. Give me a second here. We will hear the first case is item 23-306. Hold a public hearing and consider a request for a special land use permit for a religious institution or place of worship for property zoned R2, single-family residential detached district, be in plus or minus 4.28 acres on Malone Street in land lot 739, District 1, Section 3. Parcel ID is 073901300017. Application by HRC Samuel Kinnemer. Staff will now present the item.
Good evening, Marissa Jackson, Planning and Zoning Administrator, 6701 Church Street. We are here today because the applicant has requested a special land use permit for a place of worship. The site is currently zoned R2. Our ordinance that was adopted in 2019 requires that places of worship receive special land use permits in order to operate. This is an existing use that is being expanded, but since it's being expanded, it's required to come into compliance with the ordinance and obtain the special land use permit. It is a primarily residential area, and for your reference, items A and B are related. So item A is for the special land use permit, item B is for the same parcel. It's a request to reduce the stream buffer to accommodate the expansion and also some of the, a majority of what would be disturbing the stream buffer is the parking area. So since they're expanding, additional parking is going to be required. If you look at the site plan, there is a structure in the top corner that is remaining, and then there is a driveway that crosses the stream buffer to give access to where the expansion and the parking lot are going to be. Staff finds that it will not significantly modify the lot if the special land use permit is approved, and it's in the spirit and intent of the UDO. Not shown on the site plan is that they will be required to have parking islands, and I believe their requirement is 1 tree island per every 15 parking spaces. So that's also going to need to be shown when they get to their development plan phase, and I can take any questions.
I have a quick question.
Questions from the members?
I have a quick question. So this is already in existence, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and
It
so,
is existing in a smaller footprint. If you look at the site plan, it shows the portion that is existing in one color, and then it shows the portion that's going to be expanded and what the expanded footprint will look like in another color.
Are there any other questions from the board?
I read there was a previous special land use permit, but it wasn't for,
No, when it was originally built, I believe it wasn't a requirement, and we weren't able to locate an existing special land use permit.
So since these are kind of overlapping, the only reason that the SLUP is needed is because of the expansion, right? They're sort of quote-unquote grandfathered.
Yes, sir.
Right. Now,
Big
if the, and I don't want to mix these together, that's what I'm trying to do, keep some form of separation for them. Because if item 348 is not successful, then 306 would not be necessary still at, you know, at that
Well,
point,
the
or
church is
will it?
the church is existing,
Yeah.
and the church can still get the special land use permit, but the site plan would need to be altered so that
Okay.
it's not disturbing.
Okay, gotcha.
Any other questions?
Just have one quick question. Do we care, does it make sense, or does the city have any, does staff have any, preference to just, instead of doing it this way, just to rezone the place, because it's 4 acres? I mean, does that make any sense?
That's a great question. This site is currently surrounded by other R2 uses, and so it wouldn't make a lot of sense to just rezone it to something else of higher intensity, because then we would be creating spot zoning.
Makes sense.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Will the applicant come forward and state their name and address for the record? Tell us what you intend to do on the property.
Good evening. I'm Henry Greenidge. My address is 7363 Stone Bluff Drive in Douglasville. I'm the executive pastor of Trinity World Christian Center and also the director of Renaissance Leadership Academy. The purpose of this structure will be a combination multi-use facility that is primarily used for worship and Christian education on Sundays, but during the week, it will be an art center, and the focus is on children 6 to 14 years of age for training in video, music, coding, and artistic endeavors that are interested or challenging for young people, to give them an opportunity to develop those skills, and also to develop, along with that, how to monetize those skills to bring money into their families and into this community. So we'll be teaching video, music, leadership, coding, and also how to establish a business. But we want to start with kids during that age frame. I currently work with Police Chief Starks and Youth Against Violence, and I've been doing that for the last 3 or 4 years. And I work with teenagers primarily, 12 to 18. And by the time we work with those kids, there's a heavy drug culture that captures the minds of our kids. So we have decided we want to go down and start with children when they're 6 years of age by giving them training in subjects that they're either interested in or can provide economic development for them.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the board? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there anyone who would like to come and speak in favor of the project, ask questions, or make other comments? Please come forward and tell us your name and address. Is there anyone who would like to speak other than in favor of this project? Please come forward and tell us your name and address. Is there any need for any further discussion? Do I have a motion regarding this application?
I'll make a motion to approve item 23-306.
Second.
Okay. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right. The motion passes and the application is recommended approval and will be heard at the City Council's meeting on October 12th and voted upon on the 16th. Second case is item 23-348. Hold a public hearing and consider a request for a variance from section 9.01.e of the Unified Development Ordinance to reduce the 50-foot undisturbed buffer by 12.5 feet for a remaining requirement of 37.5 feet and reduce the 75-foot impervious buffer by 18.75 feet for a remaining requirement of 56.25 feet of a lot of plus or minus 4.28 acres on Malone Street in land lot 739, District 1, Section 3, parcel ID 073901-30017. Application by HRC, Samuel Kinnemer. Staff will now present the item.
Hello, me again. So there are 3 stream buffers in play here. There's the state stream buffer, that's 25 feet. We're not planning to disturb that one. There is the undisturbed stream buffer, which is 50 feet, that's a city buffer. And then there's the impervious setback stream buffer, which is 75 feet. There is a small portion of the existing facility that encroaches into the 75-foot buffer. A majority of what will be encroaching, based on the site plan, a majority of what will be encroaching into the 75-foot and 50-foot buffers is the parking area. There was a previous version of this plan. We worked with the applicant and were able to reduce some of the disturbance, and staff has reviewed it. The Water Sewer Authority said, they are generally not in favor of disturbing the stream buffers, but they did appreciate that the applicant attempted to reduce that disturbance in the second site plan that you have in front of you today.
Okay. Are there any questions from the board members?
What do you mean by disturb the stream buffer?
So so let's imagine that there's a body of water that runs through the property. We make a measurement from the bank of the body of water out. And if you stand at the bank of the body of water and measure 25 feet away from it, that's the state buffer. And that means that we can't do anything there without permission from the EPD. If you stand at the bank of the stream and walk another 50 feet, that is the city's undisturbed buffer. That means you can't do anything within that area, not even cut down a tree or build anything at all without permission from the city. If you stand at the bank of the stream and walk 75 feet out, that's the impervious buffer. And so that means that in that area, you can do grading, you can cut down some trees, and you can do some site work, but you can't have anything concrete or asphalt where water can't drip down through it. So they don't want any hard, unnatural surfaces in that area. And it's in place to protect the stream. If you have too much disturbance next to it, some of the silt or erosion might go down into it and clog it up. If you have asphalt and things like that, sometimes the like oil or pollution and things will drip down and get into it. So it's really about, one, preserving the quality of the water because you don't want the waters to get polluted, and then 2, controlling erosion so that water doesn't get washed away. And it kind of helps us to control flooding sometimes too, because if you build things there, the water can't flow and it's an issue.
One thing I would add to that is that, I've had a lot of experience designing, bargaining with municipalities, trying to make my designs fit inside these. And, one thing I'll say about this particular plan is that this is not a parking lot for a doctor's office that is going to be full of people every single day. That's a different story. Obviously, that's probably why staff was able to work with the applicant to be able to get this into where it definitely encroaches, but it encroaches too bad. There's not going to be tons of cars there all week. 1 day a week, few days a week, but not 7 days a week, because that would be probably, we wouldn't be sitting here if that was the case probably. So that was just something I wanted to add.
But he just said he wanted to use the building more frequently.
Sure.
I have a question about the mess so that my clarity is and it's more pertaining to the state requirement. So the city requirement is the 50-foot, that's undisturbed. That's, you can't, don't cut bushes, don't do anything. And then at the end of that, there's another 25-foot that you have to leave before you can do a parking lot or some impervious surface, right? So that's the 75 as a total. The state 25 is in addition to that? Or how does that, or is it within the
No.
50 that the city says?
It's
The 50 by
cumulative.
12.
So the state
And
is,
the
so if we
75,
have a
that'd be
scale,
18.
and this is 0, and this is 75, the state buffer is here at 25.
Okay,
The city buffer here is at 50.
I got
And
you.
then the impervious is at 75.
Now that makes sense to me, because I was like, okay, this doesn't add up to me, but I got it.
This is
Yes.
what you wanted.
Yeah, so can you clarify the 12.5-foot reduction as well?
Yes.
Is that for the driveway only?
So they would like to reduce the requirement by 12 and a half feet. So it would be, so the city buffer would be reduced to 37 and a half.
And then the other one wants to be reduced by 18.75.
So one is, so the 75-foot impervious buffer is being reduced by 18.75 feet. And so that one is going to be changed to 56.25 feet.
Ms. Jackson, you mentioned that the Water Authority was appreciative of the applicant's attempt to modify. But what was their position? Were they in favor? Did they think that the modifications, would it be okay with the impervious?
I think that based on the conversations that we had, the position is to not disturb them, but it was appreciated that there was an attempt to change it, and to reduce the level of disturbance.
Are there any other questions?
Thank you.
Will the applicant come forward and state their name and address for the record? Tell us what you intend to do on this property. Does he need to come back up if he wants? No, the applicant.
Applicant.
Did you want to come speak on this buffer that you're requesting?
So during the week, we'll have primarily children. We will have some staff, but there will be between 30 and 50 children that we work with, and 2 or 3 staff people at different times working with those children, with the program that I just identified.
Quick question, approximately how many cars you think you'll have in the parking lot on a weekly, like during the week, not on the weekend, obviously, because I'm sure it'd be full on the weekend, but, you know, during the week when you're having these classes, about how many cars are going to be around in your estimation?
5 or 6 cars.
Okay. Well, how do the children get there? Are the children dropped off? So
Yes.
there'll be, that's what I'm saying, the traffic going in and out will be, okay,
Yeah, the children will be dropped off.
okay. All right. Are there any other questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your time.
Is there anyone who would like to speak in favor of this project, ask questions, or make other comments? Please come forward and tell us your name and address. Is there anyone who would like to speak other than in favor of this project? please come forward and tell us your name and address. Is there any need for further discussion?
I just had one question, comment, a thought. In we're encroaching on the stream, and I guess the requirement for the parking lot is just based on the structure expansion. Would it be simpler or less invasive to the environment if we encroach on the parking space instead? Or is that possible?
So that is at the discretion of the applicant. The applicant has to choose which variances they apply for, and we're moving forward based on the variances that the applicant applied for. So if the applicant wants to change their application, we can do that. We'd have to re-advertise it and post new signs, but we're moving based on the request of the applicant.
Yeah, okay, because I was looking at, as I was just talking, checking on here on the maps, because he said there's going to be 5 to 6 cars there during the day, but if you got 30 to 50 cars going in and out, where's the driveway and the parking lot pertaining to the stream, and how would that affect it if you got rid of that buffer?
So the way that the stream buffer is organized, you can cross the stream buffer with a driveway,
Okay.
but you can't have structures in the stream buffer. So
Okay.
the driveway isn't necessarily what the challenge is. The challenge is the pad where the parking lot is, and then there's a small portion of the existing facility that encroaches just a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you look at the map, you've got their front parking spots that are a little bit of a problem, and a little bit on the end and the corner of the, part of the corner of the new 11,000 square foot building.
Does anybody else have any other questions or any further need for discussion? All right, do I have a motion regarding this application?
I'll make a motion to approve item number 23-348.
Second.
All right. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion
I'm
passed.
opposed, I'm opposed.
Okay, one opposed. Okay. The motion passes and the application is recommended for approval and will be heard at the council's meeting on October 12th and voted upon on October 16th. Thank you. All right, the next item on our agenda is staff reports.
So I wanted to give you a quick update on some things that we have been working on. The city is looking at a number of different text amendments or things that we're looking to enhance or incorporate. Some of those items will be coming to you all, so I just want to give you an idea of what's coming your way. We are seeing a lot of text amendment requests, and I just would like to make sure I inform you of that so that when you're seeing them on the agenda, you're giving it some time to review. I know that we're always looking at staff reports and giving those things. I always welcome any invitation of your input. I think that you all have the expertise needed to drive the recommendations or staff reports that staff has over to council. So I would like to just continue to encourage you all to review those staff reports and provide input to staff so we can make sure that we're giving council the best information for their decision making. So I want to just give you an idea of what's going on currently in our office. Your comprehensive plan is coming to council in a few weeks for adoption. So that is a file that you all played a part in and giving input. So I want to personally thank you all for your input and the time that you all have given to this file and the time you've given each and every time there's been an item on the agenda that council has had to hear that plays a part to the comprehensive plan, particularly your zoning ordinance when it comes to rezonings. You're always looking at rezonings and seeing how the comp plan and zoning ordinance are working together. So that file is coming really soon. And then lastly, in regards to the zoning code, you adopted some updates on the town center mixed use and your mixed mini warehouse storage units. Those are two text amendments that you recently did, and those are things that council did adopt. One thing that I want to start doing is giving you an opportunity to know where it has left your hands and went over to council and has moved forward, because I think that's something that we, as far as staff, needs to ensure that you're giving that opportunity, knowing that your hard work has moved over with an adoption or approval. Okay, so that's what I was attempting to do with those two. So I want to let you know what is coming your way next for new adoptions. We're working on the shipping containers, as you just heard tonight, but we're also looking at there to be a new opportunity for a text amendment for the New Horizons community. That is going to be Ward 3. We're looking to see how we can have mixed use be an opportunity, but at a smaller scale, more in the traditional zoning field. That is something that's going to come your way very soon. Staff is going to present that over to council. Once they're comfortable with that, then they give us the check mark to say, yes, move this over to the Planning Commission. So what happens first, all ideas before it's coming to you as a city-initiated item, it comes to council first, for council to give the opportunity to say how they want to see it presented to you as far as what language it should include, what language should not be included. Once we make it work the way they want to see it, they send it over to you. You add your comments, your thoughts, we send it back to them. They either accept your additions or staff's additions, and they adopt it accordingly. So that's going to happen for the New Horizons community. And then another item is the Georgia State zoning procedure laws. That is something that's coming very, very soon. Your UDO will have some changes based on that, because there's going to be an opportunity where the state, of course, as you know, they determine our zoning rules to a certain extent. They give us that authority, but they also have room to tell us what the zoning would be, procedures would be. And so there's, as you can see, you just had a variance come before you, right? That was the first time you all have heard of variance. And that is because the state now requires that. Now the state has a rule that allows for the Planning Commission to hear those variances. So with that being said, you have a new code coming your way very soon. That is something that we will be presenting over to you all with the list of changes. There is a list of changes that the state has put forth for their cities to move forward in. And so with that said, I know Miranda did an awesome job presenting the alcohol ordinance changes over to you all that also played a part in the UDO for uses. And so that was another change that was made to our UDO. So I want to make sure I announce that and mention that council did approve those changes that Miranda put before you all and council. Okay? Okay. Did I miss anything?
Do we want to talk about development plans briefly?
Sure, I love that. Okay. So you fine with me doing it? Okay. So
What's the New Horizons currently zoned? You said
various, they have R3, they have R4. They have some general commercial, they have various different uses, but we're looking to see how we can amend it to allow the uses to kind of go into the more traditional small town feel. As you may know, New Horizons, or the areas in that particular Ward 3, are our traditional, original Douglasville boundaries to a certain extent, with the exception of where we are now. So both areas are original parts, and so we want to keep that kind of small town feel in those neighborhoods, given the opportunity for walkability, the opportunity for there to be mixed uses to a neighborhood feel, not high-level, large developments, just something small scale to where if I'm walking, I can go have a meal, I can have my hair cut, I can have an opportunity to go to a park with my children. I can have an opportunity to have a bed and breakfast if I want nearby, whatever it may be, to where it gives the feel of a car is not necessary. I like the idea of it because that's currently what that land has the accessibility and availability for. So we're not making the land do it, it's kind of already doing it. It's just our zoning doesn't complement that.
and what's that fall under the development plan, that area?
So we haven't designed it yet. That's something that staff is currently drafting, and we haven't presented it back to council yet. But what I will say is we are looking to see if a development plan would be necessary. Most of that land is already developed, so it would be almost difficult to make a development plan kind of work in that phase, but it could, just depending on what parameter we would look to enforce. But with that being said, we're open to it before it gets back to
What
council.
are the technical boundaries of that area? I've heard so many definitions. I mean, I kind of know, but like what,
So we are looking not at the entire Ward 3 for this area, particularly we're looking at Chicago Avenue, you're looking at East and West, Strickland, Brown, and Highway, Dallas Highway. So it's kind of giving a
Yeah, okay.
triangular shape inside of the map. So it gives that kind of feel to it.
yeah.
But I would like to mention what Miranda just mentioned. So she and I work in partnership on a lot of these text amendments, and one of the items she's working on to move forward to council is there's going to be an amendment to your UDO for development plans. We're proposing to council to amend what's current or enact what's current. Your code is saying several different things in a way for UDO. So she's looking to see how to make it go in one direction versus multiple, because there's some conflicts in the language. And so she's proposing some amendments over to council. And as you know, any changes to your UDO has to come to the planning commission before council officially adopts it. So that is something she will be bringing forth to revise the conflicts and ensure that the language is cohesive to how we're actually operating as staff. Did I miss anything, Miranda? Okay. Okay, thank you. I think Marissa has an update as well. Thank you all.
So, two very quick things. As I mentioned, we won't have a meeting in November. Next meeting is the first Tuesday in December. Looking forward to seeing you all then. We'll send you the information for that. We're also trying really hard to schedule some new training for you guys. You should have received an email from us, and we also gave you a phone call. The information we're attempting to gain is what dates you all absolutely cannot be present for the training. And then we'll try to rule out as many of those dates and schedule it based on the availability of the majority. So please make sure that you respond back to us via email to let us know exactly which dates you will not be able to make it. And then we'll schedule it that way. We'll also probably follow up with a phone call to confirm that information with you all on Monday. So please don't get too tired of us calling you. And that's it for me.
All right.
I responded, but I think I did the opposite. I gave my best dates instead of the ones that are bad for me, so I'll
I gave you my best
resubmit.
dates too.
Yeah, I want to know the time you absolutely cannot come.
Gotcha.
Just a question.
Yeah.
The ethics and procedures trainings are all on Saturday. Is there a reason for the others to be on Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays?
So it's not based on our availability, it's based on the availability of the trainer. Yeah.
It's easier for, I guess.
Weekends are easier. Yeah.
Saturdays, but.
Yeah, we'll definitely keep that in mind. Yeah.
All right.
Thank
Is
you.
that it? Well, if there's nothing else and no other items, I say we adjourn until December 5th. This meeting is adjourned.